All right, so welcome in to Embered Wing Studio again. I cannot believe it is May, and tonight we are going to work on our Highland cow tutorial. I'm really excited about this one, guys. I absolutely love this project, and I think that you will too. And I don't want you to be intimidated or worried because honestly, there's nothing to be intimidated and worried about. We are going to paint this, and as I'm so sorry I'm moving things around, but I wanted to get on because I was running a few minutes late. You will see that even when I paint this a second time, my second one will probably not look exactly like this first one. And we'll go through it step by step. So I don't want you to be intimidated. I want you to enjoy the process, if anything, and I'll break it down as easily as I can. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. If I don't answer them tonight during the tutorial, I will come back and answer them. And I do have time during the week because we'll do part 1 of her tonight, and then we'll do part 2 next Thursday. So that way, if there's questions, I always have time to pop on during the week. This was the original that I've painted that you've been seeing sneak peeks of. I've painted her on a black canvas. My canvas was black when I bought it, but this is just a word of caution from myself that even if you do use a black canvas, paint your canvas black anyway. That way, if there's spots that the black that the canvas is will not be the same as your black paint. No two blacks are the same. So if you do a stroke and you don't like it, or you need to paint over it, by painting it black first, you can then go back over with that same paint that you have, and it won't look like this great big mistake blaring out at you. So I'm going to put her aside. I've named her Buttercup. And just so I want you to see, she's on a pretty fairly big canvas. I'll measure her for you. She is about 20 inches wide by 16 inches long. And if you see in Embered Wing in the creative, I gave you some printouts. This one, as you'll see, is her small. So there's a small printable for you that you could use these tracers. All right, so you could do this on a small scale. You don't need to get a huge canvas. Try her small if that's what you'd like to do. All right, so I gave you this one. I think it would be easier to use pattern 1. Put that on your canvas or whatever surface you're using first, and then you don't need to add all these hair strokes. You just want to use the basic pattern. You've also got the pattern blown up so it is 2 papers wide, 2 papers long, and that's a block poster. And I can show you in another video how you would take those, piece them together, and you get one large pattern. That's an easy way. That's a good trick about making patterns. I have went ahead and made a 3rd size that's going to fit on the canvas, or shall I say piece of wood, that I've chosen to paint her on a second time. So this is on the canvas. I love the way she turned out. But for you guys in group here tonight, I'm going to work with, because I want you to see that You can paint these things in all different sizes and using different, my brain, surfaces and different sizes. So this is good though, because you'll see me start this. I think pretty much all of our other projects I've already started with like a completed background, and I've not transferred the pattern on. So you'll see this start from point 1, and we'll go for about an hour tonight for part 1, and hopefully that'll get us through most of the cow. And then next week for part 2, we'll work on the floral crown. And then I still have not decided. I don't think I'm going to do it on my canvas one, but if I do it, I will also give, if I do what I have in my mind, I will also provide that pattern pack for you guys as a bonus. But I'm thinking of doing some hand lettering that I can pair with the cow, just in case that you want to do the cow and then also incorporate some hand lettering. So I'm just given this round piece of wood. I got this at the Hobby Lobby, and I'll just, you do your edges and everything. You want to finish it off real good. But I'm going to make sure I get just the surface done first. But these wood rounds, there were 3 in a package. They're not just the real thin ones. They have like a rim. So I like to use them this way, but you can also flip them and use it as a faux frame. I don't know. Sometimes I like to use it as a frame, but on the rounds, I also like the look without. So feel free to use it whichever way you choose, guys. And you know, with all projects, if you are not loving the colors that I have used, you can also switch up your colors. Just use the same strokes, the same techniques, but substitute different colors. So instead of shades of brown, say you want to do a gray Highland cow, then substitute with different shades of gray. You know, what other colors of a cow? I mean, if you wanted to do a black one, then you could do your background a different color and then use black with different shades of gray and even blue. Looks good with paired with the black to do your shading and highlighting, or just your hair strokes. So remember, this can be as simple and stylized as you want it, or you can take it up a notch like I had chosen to do, and make it a little more on the realistic side. But I want to give you guys a heads up. You are going to be the first to know about anything new that I have in the process, in the thinking stages. I don't know what that is on there. It must be a bump in the wood, but that's, we'll just work with it. All right, so what I'm thinking next month is I want to team up with one of my favorite business buddies, and she's also a wood cutter. I don't cut wood. I can, I just don't. I would rather spend my time painting and leave the wood cutting to those, oh, what in the world did I just get on there? Leave the wood cutting to those who are actually good at it and who enjoy it, because I, to be honest, I just don't. I got hair on it, so just brushing that off. We added another dog to our pack. Crazy me, but you guys know I had some losses this week, and this was the little baby, and her mommy passed away, so she's now getting used to living with us and our other 3 dogs. She's fitting in just fine, but she likes a little bit of love. Now I'm just gonna talk a minute while we're waiting for this to dry. It's a little humid, but if need be, I'll pull out the dryer. So what was I saying before I went off on a tangent? Before the dog. Huh? No. Oh, about the wood cutting. I want to team up with one of my best buddies who is also someone that I go to buy wood, purchase door hangers or shaped wood, because she does a nice job. She ships quick, and you know, she's a pleasure to work with. So what I'm thinking for next month, and you guys can let me know. I might not do it in the group. I might do it in the group, but I might also open it up as just like an open paint night where anyone can sign up. But I'm going to send her a tracer of my Highland cow, or it might be different than this one. And I'm going to have her make door hanger size wood. I'm going to see if she'll work with me on that. And then open it up, just have like an event, a main event on the page where, you know, for a set amount, you can order the wood and have it shipped to you, and then join us for a paint night. And that would be more of a stylized, illustrated cow, like a fun. I guess I'm gonna have to pull out the hairdryer real quick. Bear with me, guys, just for a second. Let me know if you like this later time, if it's better for you or not. I don't mind. I like to get them out. I usually like to get the tutorials out earlier, just so that you guys aren't sitting around waiting. But I also don't mind the coming on a little bit later if that works best for you. So I better turn that off before I blow a fuse. It's so humid, I have my air running. So let me just dry this really quick. All we've done is the wood round. We've painted it black. I'm going to dry it. I've printed out my tracer. That should be good. Let me turn this back on. All right. So, well, this is good because, like I said, we haven't done we've done projects from start, but I've never actually I've always had the piece based or painted on wood that's already been prepped. So I want to show you, of course you can use carbon paper or whatever they call it, you know, to transfer paper to transfer a pattern. But if you don't have that, I want to show you, since we're doing it on black, a piece of white chalk is going to work wonders. If you're doing this on a surface that is white, use a piece of colored chalk. And all I'm going to do, you guys may already know this, but for those of you who may not, I'm taking that white chalk and I am just going to coat the back of my printable, my template, with the chalk. Try to get all the spots. So I'm just coating it pretty good with that white chalk, and I will get rid of some of the pieces of dust. And you see, that's fine, guys. It's chalk. It'll wipe off with water. It'll wipe off with a damp cloth. Now, then all I want to do is sort of line her up where I want her on my canvas. And then I'm going to grab a pen, a pencil, anything with a point, a stylus. I do have a stylus hanging around here somewhere because I think my pen up and disappeared. I have a pencil that doesn't have a point, so we'll just use the edge. But I want to show you guys, if I take that pencil and I then trace along, and I can finish her ear myself. It's just the way I made the tracer. And I just want to transfer the lines on. Then when I lift up, you can see that white chalk transfers down on the black. So of course you'll take a little more time than I am right now putting your pattern on, if you feel, you know, that you need to. And I'm just going to rough outline where her ears will be. Get her horns on. I'm just going to rough outline where her head is. All right. Also the eye, I'm going to do the circle with the almond shape sort of around it. I'm going to do 2 circles for her nose. And I think that I've got everything on there that I need to transfer at this point. And you know, that's that one piece of hair there, just so you could kind of get the idea. Then I'll lift this off. There's a little bit of excess there, but it's all okay, guys. Now I'll just keep coming back to this one to reference. I did shades of brown, and I'll show you tonight, and I'll also give this to you tight. For this one, I used Chestnut by Apple Barrel. I did not use that one. Hold on, bear with me. I used a series of browns here. Of course, I used my burnt umber. You can get this by Apple Barrel or Deco Art. I used plain old white. This is Americana Deco Art Snow White, Titanium White, and then Deco Art Americana Buttermilk. Now, you'll see in here, I use this in certain spots. As we get painting, you'll see. The chestnut I used, but I did not use a whole lot of it because it, I still feel like I ate that chalk. Oh gosh. So I didn't use a whole lot of this because it came off with a really red tone. So as we're painting, you'll probably see tonight, I will rely heavily on the buttermilk and the burnt umber and the white. So those 3 colors and black, those are the 3 primary colors that I used. I did start off with some of the chestnut. I think I based her actually in chestnut, and you'll see tonight when I go to do it that I didn't really care for the way it turned out. So you guys can always substitute a different color or just work around it like I did. So I got my, you'll see here, this was the same, paper plate that I used. I'm just gonna put some of that chestnut over here. Get some of my burnt umber. There's something clogging that. Some burnt umber. I probably won't use Well, yeah, we will if we'll get to that. So there's a good bit of the buttermilk. Now, I'm just gonna grab a flat brush. Let me find my flat. Depending on the size that you're gonna paint, you know, adjust your sizes accordingly. I'll just open up a new brush pack so you can see what I'm using. This is just for all media. Royal Langnickel. They're some of my favorite brushes, the Zen brushes, a matter of fact, they make. For base coating, the flat brushes, these work just fine. So, I don't know if I got these at Michael's or Walmart or one of the two. So yeah, I'm just pulling a brush out of there, and it's so, just so you know size, it is a half inch angled flat. So I'll wet that a little bit, and all we're gonna do right now is base coat. I'm gonna dip into my burnt umber, and I'm gonna dip into my chestnut. Oh, everything is in the way tonight. And I am just going to, I'm not even going to worry about where those flowers would be. I'm just dipping back into the chestnut and the burnt umber. That's pure chestnut. You can see it's kind of like a rusty orange color. So I am just going to base in real quick. I'm going to leave the nose and do that a different color. So I'm just dipping into my two colors and basing it in really quick. You'll see there's nothing fancy here. Just two colors on the brush. And I'm just going to fill that in. Now, I am going to just go around that almond shape of the eye with the side of my flat. And work around the eye. And the best part of a Highland cow is that their eyes can be hidden by their hair. So it's just the two colors. I'm not doing anything special. No funky strokes. I'm just filling it in. You can use just the plain old chestnut, or ugh, I'm eating chalk dust tonight. If you want to do your cow in grays, you know, feel free to use like a mid-tone gray. If you want your cow black, use a mid-tone black. A mid-tone, you know, you'll use a different background color. I'm just basing this in. And it does not have to be perfect because we'll be going back over it with all of her hair. I'm just giving her a good little coat. Switching back and forth between the chestnut and the burnt umber. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here and do the same. Under her lip, and then under her chin, and I'm just going to base that color on there. This really is not intimidating. It looks harder, I think, than it is, and I don't want you to say, oh, I can never do that. I want you to try. Pick up the brush and try. I've given you the tracer. It's amazing what you can do with some paint on a brush. All right, so there we go. We have already based her. She's all ready to start getting fancy-fied. Why don't we go ahead and paint in her horns before we go much further. I'm gonna use the burnt umber as well. And I'm just gonna base in her horns with the burnt umber because I'm afraid that by the time we get to it, the chalk will have worn off, and I want to at least have her horns based in there. We can always go back and fix it with different color, make the horns more gray. So there we go. There's her horns. Okay, now, see the ears here, as you'll see on the tracer. Let me pull the tracer back. I'll bring the smaller one. You'll see on this ear on the tracer, I've put the little line there. I didn't do it on this side, but you'll just want to pretend that's there also. That's the part of the ear, like if you think of an animal, their ear kind of folds over. So we want to make that darker. So when I take this brush, you know, I can dip it in the chestnut. If you have just whatever that mid color that you've used to base. All right, say I've used all chestnut there. I then want to pick up some of that burnt umber on the top of the brush, and I want to come in here and just make sure that that is darkened up where the fold of her ear would be, or his ear. I don't know, can Highland cows be males and females? I guess the males are the ones with the horns, right? I really don't know much about wildlife animals, or farm animals, I should say, except for I like them. So if you'll see that, I just did where that part of the ear will sort of fold over. You just want this part of the ear to be a little bit darker than the bottom. And you'll see why when we start putting in. I'm just using the paint off the brush. Alright. I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm just going to dip into the chestnut color and put a little bit here to the side. I want you to play with color as well, guys. You can use straight out of the bottle, but it's also fun to play. I'm going to grab some of my buttermilk, and I'm going to mix it to create a fourth color. I'm just working that back and forth with the brush. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in here and we're going to base her nose. And we're just going to base her nose. Kind of went in the circle, but that's okay. The circle is her nostril. We can put that in at a later time. We can do that after. But just base in that muzzle with that color that you've just made with the buttermilk. All right? And it doesn't have to be a completely solid layer of color, because the trick with making something look more realistic, I guess, is that you want those different values of color, and it's more you want dots and bits of paint to make it. It doesn't have to be all one smooth layer of color. So same thing, same brush. I didn't clean it. I can run it back into that color again, just to pick up that color that we just made. Then I'm going to just dip that top tip of the flat brush right into that buttermilk paint. See where it's like that? Then I'm just gonna run it on my, I'm gonna run it here just to blend that color through the brush a little bit. We've done that before. If you're new, last month there's a video out where you can learn the double load technique. So this is called the double load technique. I'm using 2 colors, so it's doubly loaded. And I am just focusing that lighter color on the tip of the brush towards the outer side of the nose, the outer part of the nose. You can see I can just come back in. I'm just keeping that to the outer part of the nose. All right, so I can come back in with a little more and maybe come up the middle of her nose a little bit, just to give it a little bit of definition. If you don't like quite a harsh line like that, just feel free to get in there with the brush and work it out, blend it out. If you want her nose, I'm considering her, I named her Buttercup, so she's girl in my book. And I'm just blending that paint with the brush. I'm just back and forth with the brush, working that in. We call these painterly strokes, so it doesn't have to be completely smooth. All right, and in the same token, you can take the butt or the back end of the brush now, and I've just tapped it right into the burnt umber. And now I'm going to come in more of the center of the nose, and that's a little scary, but this paint is still wet. My brush is still wet with paint, and I can just get some of this color in there. I can shade it, and the more you work, see, the more you tap on the brush and work it, you're working that color in, and it's almost like makeup. It just blends in. So you can just kind of tap that around. You're just adding depth and interest to the painting. All right, you can come back in and add some more of the buttermilk color if that got a little too dark. This is totally your painting, and I really can't wait to see everyone else's interpretation of the same painting. So how do we feel now? I hope everybody's feeling good about this right now. We forgot her chin, so I'll just come back in there with, I didn't clean my brush. I'm just grabbing chestnut, and I'm going to base that in as well there. Now, this is where, to me, the fun is getting ready to start. Well, almost. We have to do her eye. She has one exposed eye. So you want to get, this is where you're going to switch off to one of your little liner brushes, one of your little round brushes. I'm going to dip in just a tiny, tiny little bit of white. Let me pull our finished one back up again real quick for reference. So here's her eye. It's mostly black, like you can see, and if you look in here, that almond shape is there, but I've covered some of it up with hair. And we're just gonna, I'll show you. We're gonna do a circle for the actual eye. You'll see that line right here. And then we're gonna play around a little bit just to define the eyeball. So I have the tiniest little bit of white paint on my brush. I don't need a lot. And the fun thing is you can come back and forth and play. So I'll put a little bit of black on my palette. Excuse me. I'm going to come in here with the white, and I am going to just very lightly go around that circle of where her eyeball is, okay? Now, around the almond part of the eye, and I'm skipping. If you can see in there, I'll see if I can get in real close so you can see this. Hold on, let me zoom. All right, so we're in pretty tight there with the eyeball. You can see that I am pressing so lightly that I'm almost skipping. I want to see some of the black. I don't want a solid. I can come in with black again, and I can tap it. I'm not cleaning my brush. I'm just picking up a little bit of black, and I'm tapping it. I'm switching back between the black and the white. Now I'll get a little bit more white. I want to come in. We're going to give her a highlight here. So we're just dropping that brush and making a little dot. Make it a little bit bigger. Then next to it, we're going to drop the brush, make another little dot. So she's got two highlights there. I'm going to knock some of that white paint off the side of my brush. And I want to do another almost faint highlight here, which with a gray color, which is just the white and the black. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to dip back in with this little brush. I don't want a lot of paint on there at all, so I'm going to wipe some of it off on the side of the plate. And I am going to just come in here and flick the brush just gently. It's just a flicking motion with the hand. So you're going to flick, flick, and lift. You're lifting, you're flicking and lifting because you're creating the illusion of eyelashes. Oh, and there goes the dog. So we're just going to flick the white paint. I'll let them out in a sec, guys. Austin, can you let them out for me, please? I'll get my son to let them out. Sorry about the barking. So we're just flicking that white paint on there and creating a little bit of an eyelash. And if you don't like what you did, you come back in with the black and you cover it up. I don't want them too big. But again, we can always cover up with hair what we don't like about the cow. All right, so we have the eyeball is pretty much done. That wasn't hard. So let me zoom back out again. Oh, I'm gonna zoom back out. Are you guys ready to start with the fun now? You're going to use this brush. You're going to use your liner brush. Let me show you different liner brushes. I know you guys like to know what kind of brushes I use. This one is a Premier. Let's see, Premier Amethyst. I don't remember where I got this, but I believe it's a watercolor. It's an actual watercolor liner brush. I don't care. I have an addiction to brushes. So here's one of the Zen brushes. I like these. This one's a little too thick. I don't think I'm going to be using this one this time. So you want a thin, thin, thin brush. Here's a new one, a new Zen. Or this is, yeah, the Royal Langnickel. This is the Zen brush. These are at Michael's. I like them. This one is good. It's got a nice little point, but it's a little too short. I want a nice little scripty brush. I want that long. Here's one, Master's Touch. This one's also acrylic and watercolor. That one's got a nice little long point to it. So anything like that. Like these are good as well, but I like the longer, see what I mean with the longer. The script brush has the longer. You guys may already know this, but just in case anyone doesn't. That's the difference between a script liner and a liner or a round. So this is a short liner, but I like the script liners. They're a lot longer. And my favorite brush came from a tip from Terry Burton over in the Robin's Nest. She turned me on to these brushes, and now I don't know how I lived without them. These are the Master's Touch liner brushes. This one is a 20/0. And they're so adorably cute. They're little, they're cute, and I love them. I don't know what it is, but I just bought like 5 more of them yesterday. I'm trying to find my other one. Bear with me. It's what happens when I clean up, or try to. If you guys could see my paint, my floor behind me is atrocious. You would be embarrassed for me. So this is that same Master's Touch liner in the number 1, and this is, like I said, this was a 20/0. You can see the difference in the sizes. I'm going to use the larger one of the two to start. I'm going to wet the brush, make sure it's got a nice little point there. And this is where the fun begins. Let me pull her back up. We're going to start off over here on the ear. So we're going to start here, and we're going to do this bottom part of her ear, both sides. Then we'll do the top parts of the ear. Now remember when I said to make this part darker on her, because when you come over with the hair, you want a nice dark base for that, those little pieces of tendrils to come over. So I'm gonna dip into a little bit of chestnut again, and a whole lot of buttermilk. Buttermilk and a whole lot of buttermilk. I mean, a chestnut and a whole lot of buttermilk. And we might get some white out here in a couple minutes. But, all right, you ready for this? Easy peasy. Look at her ear. See the round of her ear. Just the round of her ear. The hair, you want the hair to come off the ear. That's what gives it that soft look. So we're gonna start maybe halfway, pick like a halfway point with the ear, and we're gonna point down with the brush. The brush is gonna make contact, and you are gonna wiggle, pulling back towards yourself, and lift off. And you don't want a lot of paint on your brush, all right? And you're just gonna keep doing that. Light strokes. See, with the less paint on the brush, it gives you a different look. But I have not reloaded my brush yet. You can do straight, or you can make like little S strokes, wavy shaped strokes to create movement in the hair. This is just like, I am going to get some white. I want you to be able to see. Okay, so we have the buttermilk, we have the chestnut mixed with buttermilk, and we'll just get a nice little pile of white going there. I don't want a lot of paint on my brush at one time, because I want that really soft, dry brushed look as I flick the brush down onto the project and off. That's what's going to give me that look of the tendrils of the hair. Don't overthink it. Just place it and pull. Place it, pull. You don't like that now? And like I said, this is fun. Let's play. Come in and dip that brush. We haven't cleaned it once. we're dipping it back into our burnt umber. We're gonna place it there, and we're gonna come back over the strokes of hair that we just made. We're creating depth. We're creating depth with the hair. And the whole point is that we're not going to see that sharp line once we're finished of the ear that we based in. We're not going to see that. We don't want all the hair going in one single direction. What, honey? It's frozen? Is it okay now? Can you see my hand? Okay. Sorry, guys, if that froze. All right, and because I can't see a single comment, so I will go back afterwards and look for comments. But I really want that dry brush look. Now with hair, you want to start with the lower part and work your way up. So I'll come up a little bit more into that ear now and just pull down over that first row of hair strokes that I made. I'm alternating back and forth depending on how light I want to get with her hair. And I'm just flicking. That brush is just basically, the tip of that brush is touching the wood, and I am pulling back and flicking up. I want to soften that a little, just come in there, soften that hair. We're playing with color. I don't want you to feel intimidated. I'm pulling chestnut through now. Get in there with your fingers, blend it a little bit. It's a little bit white over here. You don't want all your hair going in one direction. You want some of it crisscrossing. All right, now on the top of her ear, I'm going to work this way and this way, and also straight out. So remember, I want to start at the bottom or the last place of the hair. So that would be out here. I'm going to place the brush, press it down gently, and flick out. I want that hair to come up and out and over. Are you guys getting a good view of that? I want to make sure you're getting a good view of the hair, because it's really not as hard as you might think it is. I'm just taking that brush here now, and the shorter my flicks are, the shorter the hair. Light strokes, it's hitting and lifting, hitting and lifting. And then I'm going to work some in over the ear. See how I'm just varying the strokes up and out, up and out. We'll get some buttermilk on there. We're layering, pulling hair down. And this is just pretty much a very dry brush being pulled in and lifted up, flicking. We're flicking. That'll be our word of the day, flicking. We can come here at the tip of her ear, flick some hair upwards, over. We can bring this down more to meet up the side of her face. See how changing up the colors, I'm going to just pull into some of the deeper browns now and pull up and over the lighter shades. Mix your own colors. Use 3 shades, use 2 shades. And just keep going over till you like. But to get that wispy looking hair, you want Very little paint on the brush, very light strokes, pulling back and lifting, just like when we're lettering. Okay, so that's an ear. We're gonna, and if you don't like, I don't really love the way that that's looking there, I can come in here and just put some of the chestnut there and come back in with that burnt umber, and I can mix it. Use your finger. God gives us the greatest tools ever to use. Put a little bit more of the dark in there and just dab it together. Soften that color. I'm using my finger, guys. Finger paint. Alright, then you can come in here and pull the lighter paint down over it again. Just to soften. You don't want any sharp, hard edges. You don't want them all to start or stop exactly in the same spot. Do some longer pieces, flicking that paint. Okay, so there's ear number 1. Use those fingers. Just keep soften the colors. Soften those edges if it's a little too. Let it dry. You can always come back over it again. I'm not real thrilled with it, but it will work. I told you in the beginning, even my second cow is not going to look exactly like the first. I think if I just do some really sparse hairs here, I'll like the look of that better. Here we go. Spread that paint around. There we go. And I do want to hit this part here with some white, lighter, because that's the fold of the ear. That I want a little bit lighter because that is the fold of the ear. If you want to go for that realistic look. Alright, so there we go. We have ear. Ear's done. Now, here's the fun part. We don't have to be quite as careful now as we were with the ear because we can make bigger strokes. Let me zoom back out again. We have all of her in the camera, Lex. Remember up here, we're gonna have flowers and leaves. So it's really not that important that you do this whole upper part of her head. That can all be covered up with the flowers. So same brush, haven't cleaned it yet, dipping into the burnt umber, dipping into the what's that color? Chestnut, the chestnut brown. I want to figure out where I want the hair to be flowing. So I want this piece of her hair coming over her. I'm laying the brush and pulling it back towards myself. I want hair coming over her eye, over her snout or her nose and down. So I'm just mapping out where I want the hair going. So I'm just doing, this is all one stroke. Different than the ear, I have lots of paint on this brush now. I want a nice long stroke. You can see how I did that. It's just like just a nice little curve. All right, so we'll do that one. Now, I know I want to have hair coming across her snout here, up over the nose, and then out and out off of her. And this, I mean, you can see kind of the direction that I wanted her hair to go here on this printable. This just got a little crazy. You don't have to follow each of those strokes, but if you feel comfortable doing that way, you can. Bobo, knock it off. Dogs are acting up, guys. Very sorry. I'm just gonna grab some buttermilk and I'm gonna come over that stroke again. I didn't clean the brush. It's still buttermilk and chestnut. I'm coming right over where I just did that first stroke. The paint's still wet, and I'm just kind of defining the curl of her hair. We just want to do some fun. Now, if you get this, it's kind of like a flattened out S is what we're going to do the whole rest of the way. I'm dipping into chestnut, burnt umber, and I'm just creating a flattened out S. When I get to the edge, I'm just going to flick up a little. But I do want to come over. I'll bring your original back up so you can see the different colors. Burnt umber, buttermilk, chestnut, white. We'll use white for the last. For right now, we'll do buttermilk and burnt umber, and we're just going to go and flick in these flattened out S strokes, and you can do more wavy if that's what you'd like to do. We'll go a little bit longer tonight, just a little bit, because we can always, we're going to finish her up next Thursday. But just come in here and just kind of map out where you want her little curls, and it does not have to be perfect. And at this point, guys, you want to flip over and do her other ear, same as you did there. We'll do it together, but before you get too crazy with this part, you want to have the ear done. But I just want to show you. I'm going to come in and dip into buttermilk. I have not cleaned the brush. If you look close, it looks like I've been playing in chocolate. Dark chocolate, light chocolate. What, honey? What? Blood? Mud. Oh, mud. Well, I guess it's brown. So I'm going to come in here. And this paint is wet. We're using a wet on wet technique. I'm going to come in. I'm going to pull the brush. I'm going to follow that stroke up and over. I'm going to come down, out, and lift and flick. I'm lifting my arm up to create that hair stroke. Are we getting that in the camera? All right, and the thinner you want her hair strokes to be, the less pressure you want on your brush. But we are just going to keep playing around, going between the white, the buttermilk. We are just going to keep playing with color. And I'm doing almost like flattened out S strokes and curls. Just wet on wet paint. It's wet buttermilk, it's wet burnt umber. And we're creating the curls of her hair. You want them to overlap. You want some. You don't want each one to go exactly the same way. If it starts getting too muddy like it is there, move to the next part of the canvas and play. Here's where we did a part this way. And it came around the eye and kind of came over. So we're just doing strokes like we did on the ear. We're overlapping. We're going to play with color. We're going to come in and grab some chestnut. And if you can see how the colors just start to play together, it creates the depth. We want a little bit of depth here because I want it to look like this hair is going on top of this hair. See how I'm just doing it? It's almost just a flattened S stroke, pulling it back, pulling it out, creating wisps. You can really come in and have fun with the wisps once you get the hair blocked in. We're just going to keep playing with the 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, however many colors. I'm going to come and I'm going to work here. I'm just going to work from her hair down and out. I don't want each S stroke to be the same. See, if I did it that way, I mean, it looks okay. That's like one clump of hair, but you also want to have hair crossing that and going a different direction. That's how you create that really wispy, fun movement to the hair. And I am just going back and forth in white, buttermilk. I'm mixing up my colors. When it starts getting too muddied in one area, move to the next. Cross over, make some swoops, bring her hair down. Just keep playing with that color. Get the brown back in there. See how this looks like it's now overlapping the other hair. It's just like with the beard. I want to have a big chunk of this though coming across. It's going to overlap that part of the eye over. Not a lot of paint on my brush here. You can see, if you want to just study this real close, you see the different shades, and this is just layering and layering, letting it dry, coming back and layering, adding more layers. So we'll finish this part, we'll finish this, and then we'll come back next week. But in between now and next week, I want you guys to drop questions in the comment section. I want you to tell me if you're having trouble, if you need something explained more. As you're working on your pieces, I want you to ask me questions, but above all, do not feel intimidated to just play. I'm just doing flattened out S strokes. Some are tighter, some are longer, like curls of the hair. Blending and playing. You can come in here and really just use the white to really define and highlight the wisps of the hair. Really get in there in certain areas and add definition. This right here I don't like, so I'll come in with that white and I'll make it a little bit thicker and just really define some areas of curl. Then I'm going to do some wisps there because I don't want it to be. Come in there and do some tight curls. I just want to go random with those strokes because that will make it look more realistic. If you're going for the realistic look, you want to vary those strokes. You can come back in here if it's a little too, you feel like it's a little too muddied. Just cover it up and then into the ear a little bit there. But let me pull it up a little bit. You guys can see there. how just those hair strokes. Just get in there and play. You just want to generally get a direction of where you want the hair to go. The lighter the hair, and then you could do some tiny little strokes there, and come here, do some tiny little strokes down on the chin here. We're going to go ahead and get some, because this part of it is more flicking. Can we see that, Lex? Flicking in. I'm pressing, pulling, lifting to flick. Not a lot of, you can see when I get more paint on the brush, the strokes are a little bit more defined, which is fine. You can get some of those curly strokes. You just don't want to leave that flat edge. Flick some out, curl some coming back towards in. Make them long, make them short. Vary the hair strokes. Some long, some short, some in. That's the trick to getting that really soft hair-like quality right there. Keep adding, stop when you feel like it's good. I'll come up here and add. I'm going to add a nice little white hair here, and then pull it off to the side. Deepen that, pull it off, and lift. Look, see how I'm crisscrossing that? Just creating soft, wispy hair that looks like it's blowing in the wind. I'm just using plain old white right now mixed into my brush that's dirty from all the browns that we've been using. I'm going to cover up any parts of that eye that I'm not really loving. Paint's starting to get a little muddy. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to finish this ear tonight. I'll sign off, and then we'll meet again. We might have a Q&A session this week, a live Q&A session, just in case anyone wants to ask questions. So all right, I'm going to try to recreate the ear over here again. And it's just these strokes, just like we did down here. Buttermilk white. Just the more paint you have, the darker your hair strokes are going to be. You want some of the come out and over. Out and over. The less paint, the more that paint is going to skip off the brush to create a really wispy look. A lot of this is chalk that you're seeing. It's still on there. We just don't want to see that defined straight line of the ear. We want to cover that with hair strands. I'm just dipping into some chestnut again to soften up where it got really light there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing at the top again. Buttermilk and white. I'm going to turn my piece because I like, just like when I letter, I like to pull back with my brush when I'm doing these short flick strokes. So I'm pulling back more towards myself, working from the outside of the ear in, picking up a little bit of paint on my brush, coming down over the flap of the ear, and varying the strokes so that it looks like movement of real hair. Flip some of that hair up, make little S strokes. You really can't go wrong with this. If you allow yourself to play and have fun, it's a very meditative process, just getting in here with that brush. And look, worst comes to worst, try it, not loving it, guess what? Paint over it and start again. That's all you have to do. You can make this as fun and whimsical as you want. You don't have to get all this tedious with each little hair stroke. This I'm just using straight up white on that brush again. Crisscrossing, making strands of hair, light, very light, some heavy. I just want this to look a little bit softer, but it looks okay. All right. Then I'm still not happy with this. I'm going to come in with buttermilk. I am just going to color in a whole thick clump of the hair and lift up to a point. See how I've done that wave of hair? Just really thick with the buttermilk. We'll keep playing with this till I get it the way I want it, which is why I just keep saying to you guys over and over and over, do not allow yourself to become intimidated by paint. Paint dries. Look, you don't have to do all these individual strokes of hair. You can do thicker strokes like this. I'm pressing on the brush and just pulling. I'm letting the colors mix. Then I want some of the hair coming down. Look, this is just all buttermilk. I didn't like, but that's what I mean. Those are those mistakes. I'm gonna let that dry. Look, I didn't ruin it. That's why it's paint. It's black. You can come back in here. I'll put some black paint there, and I'll add some wisps back over it, and it's as good as new. But just come back in here to our chinny chin chin and get those hair strokes in. The trick is to leave this part a little bit darker, the part that would be down at his neck, because when you flick over with the lighter paint, it creates depth. Like you can tell that that's his chin or her chin. I'm just using a little bits of white here, and it's blending the white into the brown paint. We're gonna leave it here tonight, and we'll catch up with this again next Thursday, but I'll pop in again during the week and we'll go over some of the technique again. Let me know what you'd like me to go over again, because I want everyone who's in this group to get what they need in order to create. So be sure, let me know what you think, guys. And let me see your progress. Thank you to new members. Thank you to each and every one of you. Like I said in the beginning, I don't care if there's 2 people in this group or 2,000. You are going to get my all. You're going to get projects that I feel that you can then take, paint, and sell on your own. All right, with that, guys, have a blessed night, a wonderful weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye.